So this is the Rough Country 3-inch body lift. Here's your hockey pucks. That's going to be the lifting the frame to the body. All the hardware and brackets that you need. So I know the first thing I'm going to need to do is remove the front bumper and also remove the rear bumper. So that's what I'm going to tackle out first. I'm going to have to remove the grill and remove the tow hooks, and then we'll proceed with the rear. Front bumper's removed. Next thing to do is to remove the rear bumper. Now, I've never removed the rear bumper on this truck, so this will be interesting. So I believe what we need to remove are these two bolts right here, and then this bolt right here. And if you have a hitch, remove that one bolt right there. And I think that rear bumper should slide out. You know what I just realized is I probably should disconnect the 7-way plug and the license plate lights. So this is all trial and error, folks. Next thing we're going to do is go back to the front and remove the bolts for the transmission cooler, unclip the radiator hose clips that's holding the radiator hose, so that when we do lift the body from the frame, nothing's going to bind. I'll be removing these two bolts here. Make sure any clips that are holding these two lines are unclipped. Any other clips holding, like this radiator hose clip, I'll have to undo. Don't undo the radiator hose, just the clips holding the radiator hose. So I unclipped here, then I also unclipped down here, right underneath the coolant reservoir. There is a clip for the transmission cooler line. You have to unclip that. Next, I'll be removing the intake tube, removing the ground strap, this clip from the fuse box, and underneath the brake booster, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is a harness under there. I have to unclip that from the frame as well. To remove the two grounds from the frame and the front bumper, and one right here. Next, I'm going to go around on both sides and remove this bolt that holds this brake line to that bracket, and then disconnect the ABS wire. I'm also going to remove that ground strap.
Where are you at? Pulling the e-brake?
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing that. I gotta disconnect that deal. I don't know if this is necessary or not.
No.
Oh, okay. The only thing that I see on this side is this connector right up here. I'm gonna remove that from the frame. And this side's all clear and ready to go. Now that that's marked, we can disconnect that bolt from the steering rack to this shaft. Then we should be able to go ahead and lift this truck. So now the fun part, it's knuckle puck time. So we're gonna focus on one side of the cab. We're gonna lift one side, slide these pucks in, then we'll do the other side. Alright, So you're probably wondering why I'm having a welding jacket on. Well, it's because I cannot get one of these body mount bolts off. So what I'm gonna have to do is actually cut a little box out of the side to get access to that weld nut that just keeps on spinning off. So right there, you see that little marking that I made? That's the box I'm gonna be cutting out with the plasma cutter. Alright, so I got that cut. Not too shabby. Alright, so I got a jack stand with the block of wood. I've gotten all the bolts loosened, so now I'm gonna raise it. Alright, so I went ahead and put a jack in the front. I loosened up the cab bolts on the passenger side to give it a little bit more flex when lifting this side up. Oh my lord. That is extremely intimidating. Just seeing that.
Just knowing your cab is literally just sitting on this stand. Oop. Now it's gonna slide on up. There we go. Push that up. That one's gonna set. This one is cake.
All right, now we got all of the bolts hand tightened. So we're gonna lower these jack stands and then tighten all 4 of these body mount bolts. So I don't know if you guys saw, but I had to cut the other side as well in order to get access to that bolt because it starts spinning, same with the driver's side. So now what I'm gonna do is go ahead and tighten the body mount bolts on the passenger side, thread lock the bolts, and then that should wrap up the front of the cab, and then we'll work on the bed. Everything down here already bolted up, the ABS connector, the bracket for the brake line. The wiring harness, went ahead and connected back the ground on the driver's side, the grounds for the front. Went ahead and clamped the radiator hose, the intake tube to the throttle body, and then the transmission cooler lines over there to the side. All those clamped back in the same spot, and then the harness for the fuse box and the harness underneath the brake booster. There's a clamp right underneath here. You're just gonna have to turn this hose clamp so that it's facing away from this steering rack and the steering shaft. The only thing left I'm gonna do to tidy up the front end is just install that extension for the power steering rack. That extension's right here. Basically, it's just gonna go in between the rack and the shaft. So I'm gonna install that right now. Alright, now I'm going to focus on the bed. I'm going to remove the bolts to the gas tank from the filler neck. The only thing for the bed that I noticed I had to remove was just this ground strap on the driver's side. And then there should be 5 of these bed bolts. There's 1, 2 here, and then there's going to be 3 back here, 1 right there, 1 right there, and 1 right there. So 5 on each side. We're just gonna loosen it all up and then work on one side at a time. I think it's spinning.
Oh no. There you go.
Next, I'm gonna tidy up the front end. I just gotta install the relocation brackets for the front bumper. It's gonna be one on this side, just use the factory bolts. And then we're gonna put another one on this side. So now I have to remove the stock brackets, and then I'll slip the new ones onto that bumper. So once you get these top bolts started, we're just gonna go ahead and tighten them down. And then what we'll do is we'll fit it by raising up the bumper so that it's right against the headlight. And then we'll tighten, once we get it where we want, then we'll tighten the side bolts. I went ahead and removed the front bumper off again because I forgot to drill. So right now the tow hooks, they bolt on like this, but what we're gonna have to do is flip them upside down. In order to bolt this on, we're gonna have to drill a hole right here so that we can thread that bolt in on the back of this tow hook. I got the bumper mounted and I got the tow hooks installed. The next thing to do is to install these bumper bracket extensions. So this is what the bumper bracket looks like installed. All right, so this is day 2 of the install for the body lift. Now, what I'm gonna do is focus on modifying this rear bumper. We don't need to take all this plastic stuff if that's all you're doing to modify this rear bumper for the body lift. The only thing that you need to do is you need to remove this frame from the actual body of the rear bumper. And what I mean is basically you're gonna have to remove these 2 bolts here, remove this bolt and this bolt here, and then remove these 2 bolts and these 2 bolts on this side, and that should take this frame off. Then we will cut these mounting brackets on the frame off because we're gonna put different mounting brackets on this frame. Next thing what we need to do is cut here off of this bracket. I'm gonna try to cut here so I can just take this piece off. Same with this side, just cut along the seam right here and then cut along here, and that should just take those brackets off. Now that that is cut, what I did was I kind of mocked this up onto the rear bumper brackets. So I installed both of these rear bumper brackets, tightened them down, and then I slipped the cut piece that we made. I slipped it on, and then what I did was I measured from this distance, from right here to here, to make sure it's the same distance as from here to here. I don't know if that really matters or not, but I'm trying to get it as center as possible. The biggest thing that really matters is that I think when we put those little hockey pucks is that this is going to be able to align and thread on. And then what I went ahead and did was I marked so that I know where to drill. So I marked it on both sides, and then I also marked underneath on both sides as well.
bumper's upside down. Oh shit! That fit.
Oh, little love taps.
Oh, look how low this bumper is.
It is, huh?
You know what? I'm gonna do just a little shake in here. That way when you're editing, it drives you nuts. I feel like there was an earthquake.
Before you tighten these bolts down here on the sides to mount this bumper, you probably want to slip these little guys in, these little hockey puck deals, and then I would tighten down the bolts. So this is the relocation bracket for the emergency cable. What I'm gonna have to do is route this over so that it gives it more slack. What I'm gonna do is mock this up where the ground cable is. Mark the dot right here, drill a hole, install this bracket, and we should be able to have our emergency brakes again. Alright, so that completes the body lift install. Now I had to do an insane amount of cutting, grinding, and drilling on this truck to get this thing installed. Now, if you plan on doing a body lift, I highly suggest for you to try to loosen your cab and body mount bolts, bed bolts, and see if they become unloose, because if they end up wanting to break or they're just ending up spinning, then you might have to do the same thing that I had to do. I had 4 of them that either broke off or the nut welds inside decided to break. So that alone took me 3 or 4 hours just to replace 4 bolts. So I highly recommend not doing this if you're not comfortable grinding, cutting, and drilling on your truck. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing and liking, and as always, I will see all of you guys in the next episode. Adios. Thing looks sick.